Anthropic CEO says to stop sugarcoating job losses from AI. Google's global antitrust nightmare gets worse, with Canada threatening a $1 billion penalty. Google takes another shot at smart glasses, and a leaked story reveals what Sam Altman and iPhone designer Jony Ive are planning. Welcome to #Trending. I'm your host, Jim Love. Let's get into it. The CEO of Anthropic, Dario Amodei, says artificial intelligence could start replacing big swaths of office jobs in as little as 2 to 3 years, and he's not softening the message. Speaking at Bloomberg's Tech Summit, Amodei said, "We're not talking about 20 years, we're talking about 2 to 3 years, and it's not going to be pretty. I don't want to sugarcoat it." In a subsequent interview, Amodei went further when he told Axios that AI could wipe out half of the entry-level white-collar jobs and spike unemployment to 10 to 20% in the next 1 to 5 years. Now, this is not wild speculation from some YouTuber. Amodei runs a company producing what many regard as one of the finest AI models. In that same Axios interview, Amodei said he's speaking out in hopes of jarring government and fellow AI companies into preparing and protecting the nation. Few are paying attention, he said. Lawmakers don't get it or don't believe it. CEOs are afraid to talk about it. Many workers won't realize the risks posed by the possible job apocalypse until after it hits. Now, according to Amodei, the biggest initial impact will come in white-collar occupations, and hardest hit will be younger people who do the repetitive tasks in their early career in customer service and back-office operations while they learn the skills that would serve them as they move more and more into senior positions. And while AI requires some supervision and makes some mistakes, so do younger people. So why is there not an authentic and wider discussion of this? Amodei says most people are unaware that this is about to happen. It sounds crazy, and people just don't believe it. So why does this matter? If Amodei is right, we may be watching the start of what Axios calls a white-collar recession, driven not by market downturns, but by algorithms. And just because companies aren't saying it out loud, some are clearly rethinking their staffing needs because AI is quietly picking up the slack. We knew that package software was going to overtake custom development when executive language shifted to package first. In other words, before you could propose custom development, you first had to establish that there was no software package on the market that could do what you were proposing. Make no mistake, in the early days, this did lead to some disasters, but it didn't stop the onrush of packaged software. Today, no sane IT executive would propose custom development without an incredibly strong case against purchasing a package. The same thing happened with cloud hosting and SaaS software. They went through their early period, they went through their failures, but eventually became dominant when you started to hear cloud first. Now, it is happening. Companies are starting to say AI first. In other words, prove that AI can't do a task before you propose hiring a person. Now, will this lead to what Axios termed the white-collar bloodbath? The reality is nobody knows for sure. Some are still clinging to an unproven assumption that AI will create new jobs, but they have little to justify that other than that's the way it's always happened with technology. But Amodei says, quite rightly, that we have to at least start considering what could happen if a mass of jobs, particularly entry-level jobs, are totally wiped out, because that's a larger societal discussion. I'm reminded that during the height of COVID, the shutdowns, unemployment in the US and Canada was about the same, about 3 to 4%, and it jumped suddenly to about 13 to 14%. By best estimates, that added up to $2 trillion in terms of additional deficits in the US and almost $300 billion in Canada's much smaller economy, about a tenth the size of the US. These are just estimates, but I doubt they're far off. So what would happen with our greater levels of debt if unemployment suddenly jumped to 10 or even 20%? Not for a year or two, but on a permanent basis. What would we do if youth unemployment moved to staggering levels because entry-level jobs just didn't exist. These are the discussions we need to be having instead of assuming everything will somehow work out, and that's presumably why Amodei is issuing such a clear warning. And as he said, he has nothing to gain personally from this. As he noted, one of the solutions might be to tax AI companies, which he says is clearly not in my economic interest. But for Canadians, you have to wonder, we don't have AI companies to tax. What would we do? Remember Google Glass, that awkward, expensive headset from about 2013 that made people look like cyborgs and earned the wearers the unfortunate nickname glass holes? Well, Google is back with smart glasses, and this time they think they've cracked the code. At Google I/O 2025, the company unveiled new augmented reality glasses powered by Android XR, their extended reality platform. Unlike the clunky originals, these prototype glasses look more like regular eyewear, complete with cameras, speakers, microphones, and a small display that could show information right in your field of vision. The big difference this time? Artificial intelligence. Google's Gemini AI assistant is baked right into the glasses, turning them into what executives are calling a universal assistant for your daily life. Think of it as having a smart companion that can see what you see and help you navigate the world. The Universal Assistant is the killer app for smart glasses, said Demis Hassabis during the I/O keynote. I think that's what's going to make it work. And Google isn't going to go it alone this time either. They've partnered with Samsung and Warby Parker to develop the glasses, while also showcasing Project Moohan, their answer to Apple's Vision Pro headset that's launching later this year. There's even a third device called Project Aura, made by a Chinese company, Xreal, that lets you watch movies on a virtual big screen while still seeing the real world around you. The new Android XR glasses connect to your smartphone for processing power, while Project Aura uses its own dedicated Qualcomm-powered computer. During demos, the glasses showed off impressive AI capabilities, answering questions about paintings and objects in the environment, displaying maps with a turn-by-turn direction, all triggered with the touch of a button. So what went wrong with Google Glass, and why does Google think things will be different now? Co-founder Sergey Brin was refreshingly honest about the original's failures during an on-stage interview at I/O. He said, I definitely feel like I made a lot of mistakes with Google Glass. I just didn't know anything about consumer electronic supply chains. The original glass cost a whooping $1,500, had terrible battery life, and frankly, nobody could figure out what it was actually for. But Brin isn't giving up on the vision. I'm still a big believer in the format, so I'm glad we have it now, he said, crediting advances in AI and hardware technology for making smart glasses viable again. Of course, Google isn't the only player in this space. Meta has been steadily investing in smart glasses with their Ray-Ban partnership, and they're expected to add small displays to their glasses before Google hits the market. Amazingly, Apple is apparently making another go of AR glasses, although these are still years away. The timeline? Don't expect Google's AR glasses this year. They're still in prototype phase, while Project Aura is largely seen as a 2026 product. Some developers might get early access sooner. This represents Google's latest attempt to establish a foothold in wearable computing, betting that AI is the missing piece that will finally make smart glasses mainstream. Whether they can overcome the stigma of Google Glass and deliver a product people actually wear remains to be seen. But they've had one advantage, and that is that Meta and Ray-Ban have been fairly successful at selling, I think, up to 2 million sets of glasses already. So it isn't new anymore, and maybe the glass hole name will be gone forever. But one thing's clear, the race for the next computing platform is heating up, and Google doesn't want to be left behind. In other news, Google is fighting battles on 3 fronts right now, and things have just gotten a lot more complicated. Canada's Competition Bureau is pushing for what could be a multi-billion-dollar penalty against the tech giant, and Google is so concerned that they're mounting a constitutional challenge. Now, here's what's happening. The U.S. has already won 2 major antitrust cases against Google. one over its search monopoly, another over advertising, and prosecutors are seeking to break up the company by forcing it to sell the Chrome browser and other assets. Meanwhile, the European Union is preparing charges under its Digital Markets Act, with Google facing potential fines of up to 10% of its global revenue after being fined over 8 billion euros in previous antitrust cases. And now, Canada is piling on with its own lawsuit targeting Google's advertising empire. The Competition Bureau claims that Google has created an illegal monopoly by tying together its ad tech tools DoubleClick for Publishers, AdX, Display, and Video 360, and Google Ads. According to the Bureau's numbers, this gives Google a staggering 90% market share in publisher ad servers, plus a dominant position across the entire advertising ecosystem. But here's where it gets really interesting. The penalty Canada is seeking is unprecedented. The Competition Bureau wants either 3 times the value of the benefits Google gained from its allegedly anti-competitive practices, or, if that can't be calculated, 3% of Google's annual worldwide gross revenues. Now let's put that in perspective. Google's parent company, Alphabet, reported over $280 billion in revenue last year. 3% of that would be more like $8 billion, a penalty that would dwarf anything Google has faced before. Now, that may be extreme, but Google is not taking this lying down. The company filed a constitutional challenge, arguing the penalty violates their rights under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. In court filings, Google said the penalty could be measured in billions of dollars and would be completely disproportionate to any conduct in Canada. That financial penalty could dwarf the profits Google generates in Canada in the relevant markets, Google argued. But Canada's Competition Bureau is pushing back hard. They're asking the Competition Tribunal to strike Google's constitutional challenge as premature and without merit. The Bureau argues that Google is trying to get the court to rule on a hypothetical possibility rather than an actual breach, since no tribunal has even determined whether Google abused its position yet. Beyond the money, Canada wants structural changes too. They're demanding Google sell off 2 key pieces of its advertising business, DoubleClick for Publishers and AdX, to restore competition in the market. When the lawsuit was first filed last November, Google's Vice President of Global Ads, Dan Taylor, dismissed the complaint as ignoring the intense competition where ad buyers and sellers have plenty of choice. But the pattern is clear. Regulators worldwide are no longer buying Google's arguments about competition. The company that once operated under the motto, "Don't be evil," now faces existential threats to its business model from Washington to Brussels to Ottawa. The Canadian case is still in the early stages, but it represents another front of what's becoming a global campaign to rein in big power. The Canadian case is still in its early stages, but it represents another front in what's becoming a global campaign to rein in big tech's power. And at this point in its history, I wouldn't dismiss Canada for taking a multinational on. They're elbows up. The Canadian case is still in early stages, but it represents another front in what's becoming a global campaign to rein in big tech power. For Google, the question isn't whether they'll face penalties anymore. It's how many billions they'll end up paying and what the company will look like when it's done. According to a leaked story in the Wall Street Journal, OpenAI plans to ship 100 million Screenless AI companion devices following its $6.5 billion acquisition of legendary iPhone designer Jony Ive's startup. The pocket-sized device aims to revolutionize how people interact with artificial intelligence. Now, according to this same leaked internal memo that was reviewed by the Wall Street Journal, the AI companion will be capable of being fully aware of a user's surroundings and life, will be unobtrusive, able to rest in one's pocket or on one's desk. AI CEO Sam Altman apparently described it as a third core device that a person would put on a desk after a MacBook Pro and an iPhone. And knowing what a fanboy Altman is of Apple, and that's pretty strong words. Unlike virtual reality glasses from Google and Meta, this screenless approach purports to use cameras and microphones to detect surroundings, offloading computing tasks to connected smartphones or computers. The device is designed to wean users from screens and provide seamless AI interaction without pulling out phones or opening laptops. The concept may draw inspiration from the AI companion in Spike Jonze's film Her, where an artificial intelligence communicates through a small device carried in the protagonist's pocket. The partnership combines Ive's proven design expertise from Apple with OpenAI's advanced ChatGPT technology. And we all know that Sam Altman has a particular affinity for that movie. In fact, one of the earliest voices for ChatGPT sounded so much like the lead actress Scarlett Johansson in the movie Her that she insisted the company remove that voice. So why will this succeed when previous AI companion attempts have failed spectacularly? The Humane AI pin, which Altman invested in, flopped due to bugs and inaccurate responses, but this collaboration benefits from Ive's track record at creating amazing Apple designs that were also thought of as impossible, and OpenAI's market-leading AI models. The device is expected to launch in early 2026, representing OpenAI's ambitious expansion from software into hardware markets. And that's our show. Love to hear what you think. You can reach me at editorial@technewsday.ca or on LinkedIn, or if you're watching this on YouTube, just leave a note under the video. I'm your host, Jim Love, and hey, free commercial here. If you really love the movie Her, you'll love my book, Alyssa, A Tale of Quantum Kisses. You can get it on Amazon. You can continue reading the story of humans interacting with AI. If you can't plug your own book on your own show, where can you plug it? I'm your host, Jim Love. Have a thrilling Thursday.